All right, Les. So I want to start by asking a question I haven't started with in a while, but I think it will be fun to ask you this question. What matters to you?
What matters? It's a long list, I think.
Hmm.
Not that I'm overly fussy about things, but sincerity matters to me. Obviously, my spiritual path matters to me greatly. Um, I think moral standards, I like to maintain them and I like them in other people. Um, Apart from that, I say it could be a long list. You dropped me in it there by just asking a question straight away that I'm going to have to spend time thinking about. But I think it's basically my spiritual path and all that goes with that, which includes the yamas and niyamas and Ten Commandments, as if you will, to honor all of those.
Yeah, very good. So yeah, let's focus on that, your spiritual path. And we say that often, spirituality, spiritual path, but I find it can mean so many different things, right? So I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, what does it mean to you, and why is that one of the things that's so important to you to connect uh, on a spiritual level to this experience of being alive?
It is obviously. I was born and raised in the Baptist faith, the Welsh Baptist faith, and I struggled with that Christianity, and it couldn't answer the questions that I kept asking myself. So it wasn't until later when I actually started yoga that the answers started to come. And there, I realized quickly that I didn't really want to be pigeonholed into any particular religion. Although some people might say, well, as a yogi, you're pigeonholed. I think no. If I'm asked if I'm religious, I'll say I'm spiritual, because then like spirituality runs through all religions. So basically, I can say, well, I belong to all faiths. I respect all faiths, not necessarily that I believe them, but I do respect everybody's right to believe what they want to believe. And that gives me a great deal of freedom. And that's why I think the spiritual path is so important to me. Not only does it give validation for my life and purpose for my life, but it also helps me to accept an awful lot that maybe as a devout Christian I would not have done, because they're very, a lot of religions, I'm not just going to criticize one, but a lot of religions are too dogmatic. They're too, my way is the best way or the only way. And I don't get that at all. I've never really subscribed to that. So I think that anything that's too dogmatic, I steer clear of, basically. And I just want that freedom to believe what I want to believe, to think what
Hmm.
I want to think. And if I believe in God, I want that to be a simple belief. I don't want it complicated by too many dogmas and everything else that goes with it, too many rules and regulations. If I just believe in God and I can actually communicate with the divine, whatever name you want to give it, and it can communicate with me, then I just love that simple relationship. I absolutely love it. I think it's the best way for me. It's not for everybody, I admit. A lot of people really want to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to overcomplicate my belief system. I have a nice, comfortable one. I'm very comfortable with it, and I'm happy with it. So that's why I think that's so important to me, because it all makes me happy and everything fits. And everything that I do now, especially now that I've semi-retired, becomes more meaningful. And every day is filled with, certainly we have a lot of fun and laughter every single day. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of purpose behind what we do, what I do now. The creativity side is now allowed to come out, whereas that was suppressed for a long time. So yeah, it's very important to me in a nutshell, as I'm sure it is for you too. That I know that you struggled with your Judaist faith. So you must feel the same thing, that there's a certain freedom now that you can accept everything, including Judaism, like I can accept baptism.
100%, definitely. Yeah, if I'm going to want freedom myself, then I have to extend that to others as well, even
Yes,
if
exactly. You do.
it's not something that I agree with, as long as it doesn't seem to be negatively impacting me or others. I think freedom is essential. That I also really like what you mentioned in terms of simplicity. So for me, that was also uh, is also extremely important in life. It's like eh, the simplicity allows me to, I think, relax to a certain degree and overcomplicating things. And that was a part of, yeah, my experience growing up with Judaism. And it's very complicated. And there's so many different laws and there's so many different
Mm.
interpretations. And all of that
Yeah.
is incredibly difficult to keep track of. And that just doesn't work for me. Like, yeah, I need it to be simple. I realize on even a physical level, I need my house to be clean and I need to get rid of things that I'm not using. Like, that makes a big, big difference.
Yeah, yeah. What is it? Minimalist. Yeah,
Yeah,
keep
exactly.
everything minimalist. Simplify your life, and then you're happy with it. Absolutely happy with it. And yeah, I think we tend to hoard a lot of things unnecessarily. Even now, I'm guilty of that. But I don't know. I think now I can prioritize and say, well, certain stuff is not that important. I don't really know why I've got it. I'm not attached to it. So if it goes, it goes. That's it. That's another freedom, the freedom of non-attachment to things. I absolutely love that. There's very little I'm absolutely attached to, and I think the only thing that I'm really attached to is love.
Mm,
I don't see anything
mm,
wrong with that.
mm. Yeah, to be and to be so attached to one thing or a couple things that everything else kind of dissipates because there isn't room for much else, right? Like the love is so big
Yeah,
that there's not room
exactly.
for anything else.
You don't stand for nonsense anymore. The older you get, you learn that, don't you? And they say that the older you get, you suffer fools less. You know, you can actually speak your mind, whereas before you might not, for fear of what people think. And now there's a certain freedom in being able to say exactly what's on your mind, so long as you do it in a loving, caring way and an honest way. And I love that freedom too. I'm practicing that. I'm sure that my partner here will say I don't fully do that, but I try to. I try to be as straight as I can when I can.
I wonder about what allows for that too. Like you mentioned at the beginning, sincerity, being straight, being authentic. Like, okay, in a way, it's just the first step to even acknowledge that that's my intention, right?
Hmm.
But once I realize it's my intention, actually doing it is now a whole other level. It's not just not just saying it.
Yeah.
And for me, what I could say really works is considering what I am, right? Like,
All right.
like what am I? Am I this separate being that isn't a part of nature, that isn't a part of God's creation? Or am I a part of God's creation? You know,
Yeah.
and if I am, then being authentic is a certain level of respect for that, and being fraudulent and wanting to convince other people of this and that. That's not honoring God's creation, right?
No. No. Quite. It's not. It's a misinterpretation of everything. I feel it's almost a bastardization of the truth. It's people twist and turn it for their own benefit, for to fit their own egos, if you like. And now I have really no time for that um, at all. I think if people can be straight with me, I much prefer that because then I can accept them better rather than them pussyfooting around and, trying to be something that they're actually not and that sort of thing. And then I just think, okay, grow up, get a life, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I wonder, if the curiosity also extends to this, like being authentic to myself, that I'm curious of even what's going to come next. And I wonder for you, who's an artist, you draw and you play music and yeah, and you're a photographer, like is that just what shows up, the kind of stuff that shows up when we're authentic? Then all of a sudden, like this creation moves through us?
I think so. I think that once you tune into that, the inspiration comes. Once through meditation or however, the inspiration comes through you. I think there's a lot of creative people say the same thing, that it's not them, it's something beyond them that actually creates whatever it happens to be, the music, the art, the writing, the photography, whatever it is. And I feel that in my case, as I say, the creativity in me was suppressed because of my circumstances for a long time. I went through an early stage of being creative, and then life took me in a different direction, and I wasn't able to follow as much as I wanted to. And it's only recently, since I guess since I got on this spiritual path, that I've realized I can do that again. You know, I can tune into it. Um, and I can create something. And it did start slowly, and now it is seemingly coming back again. All the I call them gifts because I don't call them talents. I think whatever I do is channeled through me, right? So it's not me; it's a gift from the divine that comes through me, and then somehow it all just suddenly comes together. It may be fragmented at first, or it may be just the draft of an idea or something like that. Or a simple, I don't know how to express it. It's something that doesn't come as one in detail. It's something that's drip fed through me,
Mm.
and then you can come up with a draft, and then you work on that, and then it gets better and better and better. And I think it's not just, I'm not just talking about drawing or writing. It's just something that is in your head, and then once you start putting it as a draft, in whatever it happens to be, in the music, the art, whatever it happens to be, suddenly there's a flow, and it goes from a draft, gets better and better and better. That's how I feel anyway. So
Yeah. I wonder, is there like an initial seed that's planted, or I don't know what the right word is, right? So, and you mentioned meditation too, because I think that has a big effect on this, right? Like
yes, yes,
getting to that clear, neutral place often brings something through that feels extremely important and right, right?
yes,
But then what follows that is interesting to me, because it seems that the mind does have a part to play in this. So something comes through that feels of value that I should give attention to. And then the mind can be used to focus on that thing, to kind of almost like the mind itself is maybe like the sun is light, and it's deciding what to shine on. And as it continues to shine and spend time on that thing, then that maturation and expression starts to unfold in the way that you're talking about, I think.
I think that's a good way of expressing it. I think that's a good way of putting it. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a seed planted, and if you stay focused on that seed, much more will be revealed. But the question is to stay focused on it. Sometimes, I'm sure we're all guilty of this. You'll suddenly have an idea, and then 5 minutes later, it's gone. It hasn't planted. The seed has popped in and it's popped out again, and that's it. I know that's happened to me. But then when it does pop in, like you get something visual or something audible in your mind, and then you think, okay, I want to now interpret that. The mind is the instrument that you use to interpret it. So the mind has to function and analyze it and interpret it, and I don't know how else to say it. The mind is the tool that you use to get from that seed to the finished product. So the mind has to have that ability to do that in the first place. It's not something that is just presented on a plate to you. You
Mm,
know, it's something that you have to work on,
mm,
and I think that's maybe that happens to people who are creative, that they have that ability straight away. But in my case, it's a bit of a slower process. It's there, but it's has to be drawn out. I have to work on it. You know, I mean, you play
yeah.
guitar, you play music as well, right? So, do you ever come up with your own stuff?
I haven't really. Guitar is different for me because um, I've just been so satisfied. I learned at a later age to play, and
Hmm.
I've been so incredibly satisfied with just the ability to play some different songs that I enjoy so much. And it's really more of, I mean, sometimes I'll play like I did at the reunion, in front of
Hmm.
others, but rarely. It's more of a very personal activity that I do to just feel something great, to enjoy, the act
Yeah,
of
that's
singing
been good.
and, yeah, connecting with these songs that I love so much. Um, but yeah, but it's almost like it sounds like, if it is something that's kind of calling to be created, right?
Hmm.
Writing, music, art, uh, that I don't know if will is the right thing, but maybe it is, like that will to come back to something, to not get distracted by other things that are new and shiny, but not as important. And I think that's really hard in today's age too, right? With social media and everything else.
Yeah.
So this is critical to actually creating something that gives a person purpose, is to, in a way, prioritize, right? All these things are coming in nonstop, but what really feels like the most important thing for this being to be spending its time doing?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we could get onto the subject of AI because Mal and I have a slight disagreement about the usefulness of AI, right? But I think in this case, it's relevant to what you're saying. And that is that I feel that I understand AI is here to stay and it does have incredible uses and it's quite fantastic. But I'm very much the purist, the old school. I like to create something that comes from me. And then once it's come from me, I'm quite happy to give it to someone to put it through AI, maybe to improve it or to disseminate it wherever it happens to be. But I personally would not want to sit down and create something using AI. I think it has to come from me. It's and these days there's a lot of talk about AI writing books for people. Um, and doing all sorts of manner of wonderful things. And I can see that there is a purpose for that. There is a use for that. But then I think in the long term, we're going to lose our individual creativity if we allow the AI to take over. It's like, all right, you need to have a machine to take a photograph. You need to have a camera to take an actual photograph. That's by definition. Right. But these days you have Photoshop, so you can take a really bad photograph and then you can put it through Photoshop and make it look very artistic and wonderful. Right. But again, I don't like the concept of using Photoshop except in certain cases. Like Photoshop is very good for restoring photographs, very good for fine tuning an already good photograph into a great photograph. But to me, the joy, the pleasure is once you take that photograph and you see it, like it's come out exactly as you wanted it to, just with the camera, not with anything else. That's the joy of photography to me. I get it that other people believe differently and that they just think, well, it doesn't matter if I mess up, I can, put it through Photoshop. And now you can buy mobile phones that have all sorts of software in them to edit photographs and do all sorts of wonderful things. My son Bradley has one, very expensive. It's more of a camera with a phone function rather than a phone with the camera function. And but to me, I don't know, that's not as satisfying as getting a good old camera, maybe even a 35mm camera, taking a photograph and seeing the end product and saying, wow, that really worked exactly as I wanted it to. There's that joy. I don't need to do anything further with it, And I think
Yeah.
that's my attitude towards all creativity and anything that's AI. I think it has to come from us in the first instance. And then, by all means, we can spread it with AI, we can improve it with AI, we can do all manner of things with it. But the initial thing had to be channeled through me, come out of me first.
Mm. I wonder if this isn't so different than when we were speaking about uh, different religious practices, spiritual practices,
Right.
and how there are so many different paths and techniques and all of that that people use, and that it's all fine. But that, you know, for you as an example, or for me, we appreciate the simplicity, of our practices. But if
Yeah.
someone else wants to be more complicated, then it's fine. So, right, like that's the question. I hear what you're saying in terms of like for you, this is the way that you want to take photographs, or this
Right.
is the way that you want to write.
Yes.
And I don't think there's anyone that's stopping you. And more of the question would be like, do you want to prevent others from using AI, using other tools as a first draft, as a way for them to move forward? Guess that would be my question.
I don't think that's my role. I think I have to respect everyone's rights
Yeah.
to do what they want to do. Obviously, with my children and my grandchildren, I like to steer them in a particular direction so that the creativity comes from them. But I have no right to tell anyone that you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. AI is here to stay. We'll see what the long-term impact is going to be on humanity. And there will be an impact on humanity for sure, but it could be a positive one, it could be a negative one. It's like the old analogy of the knife. Is it a good knife? Is the knife good or is it bad? We don't know yet. There's a lot of good things to come out of it. I can understand that and I can see that. But I can also see there's a lot of risks because, like all technology, they become addictive. And people don't have that discriminative discernment to be able to say, I'm going to stop this now. I'm going to go back to writing my own stuff rather than getting a computer to write it for me and that sort of thing. I think people will get too lazy, too addicted to all of this stuff. And that's what I'm worried about, that that will be the negative impact on humanity in the long term.
And I wonder if it's much different than, let's say, GPS or calculator, right? Like clearly humans now who use GPS are not as good at, spatial awareness and understanding, just the physicality of their surroundings. Similarly with math, because of calculators, people aren't as good as doing, math in their head, and these things aren't going away. But when the tool is so useful, it's hard to deny it.
Oh yeah, I totally understand that. But the thing is that everything is accelerating at a rapid pace now. Calculators took some time to bed in, and that for a long time they were banned from exam rooms and that sort of thing. Um, and yeah, GPS actually is a very useful tool for knowing where you are. I get that. And as I said, I think AI will have its uses as well, because it's not just the creative aspect of AI. There's all sorts of applications, and I can see that there is going to be some benefit. It's the same with the internet. Internet is an information sharing platform, and I think it's an incredible sharing platform. The worry is that people will become addicted to this. That's my concern. And it's all happening so fast. We're getting information overload now, thanks to the internet. And young people now are getting so addicted to their phones that they can't. Well, in fact, there was a survey recently that I heard about that a lot of young people now are scared to pick up the phone and actually speak to someone over the phone because they've got so used to texting and they can't face the possibility of actually having to speak to someone and answering them and all this sort of thing and physically interacting. And I think this is just the beginnings of
Hmm.
that. And that's the dangers. I think the technology in itself is wonderful. I mean, there's all manner of things that can be done now which will help mankind. But there's this aspect of people becoming addicted to it and becoming lazy by it. I mean, how many labor-saving devices do we need before we become totally redundant as human beings? And I think it was Einstein that said he dreads the day when the machine will be smarter than the human mind, or something like some quote like that. And I think that is a possibility. And then what happens to us?
Yeah.
Unemployment rates are going up ridiculously. Poverty is going up ridiculously in so-called industrial, wealthy countries, and it's simply because technology is taking over. I
Yeah.
mean, thanks to technology, we can do something like this. So I'm not knocking technology. I can see the
Yeah.
benefits of it. As I say, I'm just a little bit concerned about the addictive nature of it. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the addictive nature is the thing to focus on and is so important. What I always come back to is a simple question. Again, back to the simplicity is how much? So whatever it is in my life, and especially in relationship with technology, how much? So very uh most of the time, sometimes the answer is zero for certain things. I don't want any of them in my life. But
Yeah.
for most things, there's a certain percentage. I don't know exactly what that is for all of things, but just to be aware of that's my intention is to find a percentage that feels healthy for me, right? Like how much percentage of my time do I want to be looking at a screen during the
Mm,
day? How much time do I want to be out in nature? How much time do I want to be with other people? How much time do I want to be by myself? Just like
mm,
on and on. So that's the question of how much. And I think the addiction happens when I'm not really aware of the need to even ask that question about this thing, whatever it is that I'm
mm,
addicted to.
mm, mm. No, I'm like you. I think I come to that point now where I think, well, I have to accept certain things, and I will accept them. And there's a lot of things that I don't particularly want to partake of. Like I closed all my social media accounts except Instagram, and obviously I've got WhatsApp, but apart from that, I use it very little. Um, I made that conscious decision. I did not want to get addicted to all of these things. Um, we have YouTube on the TV, and so there's certain things that's useful that we can say, okay, now I want to look at this, I want to look at that. But that's where the discipline comes in. And that's where the discrimination comes in. How much time you're disciplined enough to be able to just say, no, that's enough of that, right? I'm now going to do this. I'm going to go out. I'm going to
Exactly.
meet people. I'm going to go out for dinner, whatever it happens to be. I just push that to one side. But unfortunately, there's so many, especially amongst the young people, who just can't do that. Their social interaction is through a computer screen, full stop, you know.
Mm.
And I think that's incredibly sad.
And that's the consciousness and the awareness. And I think through the yoga practices that we can do, like that's really what's behind these practices to become more aware.
Yes.
The awareness itself is what seems to lead to freedom.
It does. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Once you are aware of your surroundings and everything that impacts your life and the things that disturb you, as nobody wants a disturbed mind, we want to keep peaceful and calm and happy and everything. Once you become aware of the good stuff and the bad stuff, then you can actually become more disciplined, and
Mm.
you can learn to enjoy life more. What I found that unfortunately is that the older you get, the faster the days go. So we have to try and pack in as much as we can, because they just literally fly by now. I can't believe that we're, coming to the end of the second month of 2025. It's just incredible. And so, yeah, and a lot of things that we do now take on a new meaning. They take on a new importance. Stuff that I said earlier, you don't suffer fools anymore. You can discriminate and say, well, I'm not going to get involved in that. I don't want that. I want this. And what I want is something that's actually going to help me. It's going to keep me peaceful, happy, calm,
Mm.
whatever it happens to be. And obviously there are certain things, and unfortunately technology is one of them, that causes a lot of frustration. But once you understand the reason that behind that frustration, and that is that you have an expectation, once you let go of that expectation, the frustration will go, and you just accept it for what it is. Things become better, right?
Yeah. You mentioned disturbances. Are there any particular practices or techniques that you use when your mind is disturbed that are helpful for you to come back to that peaceful place?
um Not so much mantras. It depends on the mantra. Sometimes I can use a mantra. I use a lot of music when I'm meditating in our yoga hall here. And it depends on my mood on the day as to A, whether I need it, and B, if I need it, what is it I'm looking for? For example, I've got a short one that I created on breathing. I use that one a lot because I find focusing on the breath helps to still the mind. And then there's others where it's music outside. It's not like the mantra in my head. It's music outside. It's a mantra outside that helps me to focus. And then if I nothing else works, I just say, okay, the mind is just all over the place at the moment. I need to focus on something. So I'm going to focus on God. I'm going to talk to God, and I'm going to tell him whatever's on my mind. I'm going to talk to him about whatever's on
Mm.
my mind. And that's very what's the word I can use to describe that? It's very uplifting in that once they start a conversation, you suddenly find that the answers are coming. So you're actually having a two-way conversation. That's the way I
Mm.
interpret it, right? That, it's like, oh, right, there's this thing, particular aspect that's bothering me. Like there was the story of the two, from the Upanishads, the two golden birds seated on the self same tree, right? One eats of the fruit while the other watches. And I was thinking, well, the one watching really must be dispassionate. And then I thought that one through and I came up with the answer and say, well, no, it's not. Right. So it's that sort of thing, which is more of a contemplation than a meditation that I find, and also a conversation that helps to clear everything and helps to calm the mind. So, yeah, I find that extremely useful. And that's my, if you like, my last resort, if the mind simply will not sit still, then I say, okay, I'm going to talk to God. I'm going to have a conversation and see what answers come back. And then also another thing I've noticed, and this is absolutely true, is that in the moments when I can calm the mind, they say that you get certain, we can call them powers, but you gain certain insights. For example, clairaudience or what's the other one? Clairaudience and clairvoyance. I said, right. I can hear birds twittering. And I know we're living in the countryside here, but it's not outside. It's not birds twittering away outside. It's birds twittering in my head. And once I hear that and I can hear it and I can focus on it, then I realize, oh, it's okay. God is here. The divine is here. I can talk to him. It's very, very faint. Some days it's actually louder than other days. And some days I struggle to hear it. But if I'm quiet enough, I can hear it. And then that's my reassurance and I can just carry on. I get calm and I just carry on. It's an odd feeling and it's absolutely true. That's what I hear. I don't see things, but I do hear birds twittering. It's like the dawn chorus, like the dawn of a new day. If you've ever been out in the countryside and just as the sun is coming up, you can hear one bird, right? And then a few seconds later, you'll hear another bird somewhere else, and then you hear another one, and it gradually builds up to the dawn chorus. It's very much like that, right?
It's amazing to me the power of intention. Even like if I'm outside, where I live, there's so many birds everywhere.
Right.
And normally, my intention is not to listen to the birds, hear the birds. And because it's not, I don't hear them. Uh,
Right. Yes. I see
but
what you're saying.
but if
Yeah.
I put my attention on that, like, okay, I'm gonna listen to the birds right now and then
Yeah.
see how many different bird sounds I can hear. It's amazing how much is actually happening.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? If you just put your mind to it, yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, where we live here, fairly early in the morning, we also get a lot of gardeners going out with the lawnmowers and things like that, which generally you can also block out. But then once you try and focus on the birds, you also unfortunately pick up the gardeners with the lawnmowers and leaf blowers and things like that. So I think going from focusing on what's inside to focusing on what's outside and then being aware of what is outside. And while I'm inside, I don't hear the gardeners. But as soon as I turn that focus, oh, there they are with the leaf blowers and the lawnmowers and making a noise, but don't worry, they'll stop in half an hour and it'll be done, so it's fine.
I get the sense that you have respect for your own mind, that if you do set an intention to contemplate something, to figure something out, uh, that there's a good chance the clarity will emerge. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure I described it exactly as you have. I think it's an ability I think I'm aware of. It doesn't always work. That's the trouble. It depends on the mood, whether I've had a good night's sleep. There's a lot of factors that come into play, and you just have to accept. Some days it can be brilliant, other days not so good. Some days really bad. It depends on the circumstances. And as long as you accept that, you say, okay, it'll be fine tomorrow. It'll be brilliant tomorrow. I'll just look forward to. It doesn't matter. At least I've tried. That's the main thing. And my promise is to keep going and not miss one single day. So, and I would feel horrible if I did miss that single day, and I'm so determined not to, that even if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it can be 5 minutes and 10 minutes of total concentration, total focus. It doesn't have to be 2 hours of sitting there with the mind all over the place. I just think I'm not into that. Sometimes I go in to the hall to meditate, thinking, I don't think this is going to last very long because I can tell my mood, my mind, so I'm going to make the most of the time I have in here. And if it's only 15 minutes, 20 minutes, okay, accept it. At least I kept the promise. I didn't miss a day. I'm going to keep going, to my last breath, and just keep at it, because maybe I don't achieve enlightenment in this life. Maybe I'm going to have to come back and come back and come back and come back. But one thing's for sure, as far as this mind is concerned, the one I have right now as who I am, I'm not going to stop. And my only desire for the next life is to want to know the divine more than I actually want now, if you know what I can see what I'm saying. It's
Hmm.
to have a stronger desire to know the divine than I have right now. I have a very strong desire now, but I don't want to lose it. So if I come back in the next lifetime, please don't let me lose that. And in fact, make it even stronger still, so that maybe next time I'll actually get there, you know?
What does it mean to know the divine? What does that mean?
Again, I like to keep things simple, right? I've come at it from a scientific viewpoint. I've come at it from a religious viewpoint, from a yogic viewpoint, and I want to keep it simple. And it's the simple fact is, I know God exists, right? And I know He listens to me. I know He takes care of things. I have no doubt about that, right? What I don't know is, how does He do it? How does He do it? This is the big mystery. Yeah. And it's very easy to say he's there, right? And he's doing all this amazing stuff. And if you think about every single grain of sand on the planet and how many planets there are in the universe and how many little creatures there are, how does he break himself up into so many little pieces, and each piece is perfect and each piece has a function, and you know, it's just, that's the great mystery to me. Is not that God exists. I know that. How does He do it? That's the big question in my mind, and that's what I think I mean by knowing the divine, is exactly knowing how things work. I can see things work, I know things work, and I can understand that we're all made up of um, energy, you know. And as I say, I came at it from a scientific point of view. So you start looking at atoms, and then you know, they look deeper, and you come up with quarks, and then science is now realizing that nothing is solid; it's all super condensed energy and that sort of thing, and that is in absolutely everything in the universe. So that I'm thinking, well, that's my, if I needed a visual reference for God, that would be it, right? That there is this huge energy. But the thing that defeats me is, how can something like, you know, super consciousness like that do it, right? That's the mystery to me. That's what I, when I say I want to know God, I want to know how He does it. And I think we find out when we eventually pop our clogs, you know, and go to the
Hmm.
other side, then we will find out. But in this lifetime, all of this is limited. The grey matter is trapped inside this hard skull, and it's so limited, and we cannot, literally cannot, and never will be able to fathom the unlimited while we're in this state. And I think our only glimpse of it will be when we leave the body.
Hmm. And maybe that is an answer in itself, is to know that I will never know, and to be okay with that. In a way, to be okay with being defeated. To see, okay, like, I'm never gonna figure this out. Like, come on.
Oh, I don't know. Is a defeatist attitude the right one to have? I don't know. You have to accept that we'll never know while we're in this form. Right. Yes, that's fine. Then you can throw your hands up and say, I can accept that I am so limited, I will never totally understand it. Right. I can get glimpses of it, you know, the truth and everything. But no, I think, okay, well, you know, when my time comes, hopefully I'll be able to like fly off and say, oh, that's how you did it. That's how it works. Right. Then I've got the answer. Maybe I won't. You know, it's like the way I look at it is that you put a drop of water into the ocean, it instantly merges with the ocean, right? But if you put a drop of water in a jar and you seal that jar and then you throw that into the ocean, that drop of water will never merge into the ocean. And I look at that jar as being our karma, that we're not allowed to actually merge until that jar has dissolved and that drop on the inside can actually be freed to merge with the ocean. And that's the way I look at it. So I'm stuck in that jar at the moment. And who knows how long it's going to take for that jar to dissolve, but hopefully one day it will, and then I will merge with the ocean.
Few different levels, right? Like one is like it is already merged, you know, it's not all water, but
No, it's a
but
very simple analogy, but yeah, I get what you're saying, right? Yeah, but I don't know. I just think that we we have to keep coming back. It's like that jar will keep getting washed up on the shore, right? Until it comes to a point where it either shatter and release that drop, and suddenly, you know, the drop will
Hmm.
emerge. I don't know. It's just a simple way. that's why I say I like to look at things simplistically. I like to keep it simple. So my understanding of will I then achieve enlightenment and merge with the divine, and not have to come back, not have that jar washed up on the shore again, then I think, well, maybe then I'm stuck inside that jar. It's my karma, and I've got to get rid of all of that first and keep coming back to the shore, coming back to the shore, coming back to the shore until it's all gone, and then I can merge. And that's just a simple analogy for my mind. I mean, people might disagree with that or might have their own versions. It's fine, but that's the way I look at it. That it's the way I could try and rationalize why is it that I've got to keep coming back? Why is it that when my spirit leaves this body, it can't merge anyway? You know, I've got to come back again. I've got to, as I said to you one time, I think, you know, I'm okay with the idea of falling asleep as Les Roberts and waking up as someone else, because I think that's probably all it takes, right? And then Les Roberts will disappear like a dream, you know, and then you go back into another lifetime. And you have to go through certain processes, get rid of your karmas again, you know, and hopefully at the end of that lifetime, then the jar will dissolve and you can merge with the infinite.
So you think, that's the goal, to get to that end point where this merging happens and mm, I don't need to come back again. There's no more lessons to be learned. Then, like, the purpose of of these lessons, this experience, is to get to that end point of merging.
I think so. Yeah, I think that then gives the purpose to life. A lot of people say, well, you know, oh, what's the point of living and all this sort of stuff? You know, what is the point of life? What is it we're all seeking at the end of the day? And I think that is the ultimate goal. At the moment, we have the freedom to realize that we have no freedom because it's all an illusion. But I think that goal of merging with that one in that oneness has to be the end point. What else would there be?
But at that point, too, do you think there would even be kind of this conceptualizing, this understanding on the level that we're even talking right now, where there's answers, right? There's yeah, understanding of how something works. Like when the merging happens, is there even this mind anymore, this identity that has thoughts? Maybe that doesn't even exist anymore.
No, it doesn't. But the way I rationalized that was, and I go back to the two golden birds on the self-same tree analogy, right? That each of us has two personalities within us. And if you were to say that God is not in my neuronet, not in my brain, and not in my thoughts, then you found a place where God isn't, right? So I think every thought that I have, that electrical impulse that races across my neuronet, is divine. My neuronet is divine. My brain is divine. And this is where the illusion comes in. I'm thinking, and I think the divine is tricking me into thinking that I am separate and that there is this golden bird sitting inside of me, just observing, just witnessing, and which it generally does. But once you connect with it, it stops being that way. It stops being the witness. It actually interacts with you once you connect with it. And as long as you connect with it, it will interact with you. So it's not dispassionate at all. What it wants is for you to connect with it. It wants the two birds to merge, to understand that that you're doing that you are merging. So, and so to that end, all sorts of things will happen in your life to challenge you, to try and point you in that direction. You know, come on, I'm sitting here watching what you're doing. You're eating the fruit, but you know, all this bad stuff is happening so that you will turn around and you will connect with me. So going on from that, if there are the two personalities in me, so that when my soul leaves the body, and I love the description that yoga has of the soul, which is spirit plus mind, that they both leave, and there's this transition period where the mind falls away, but the mind and the spirit are the same. This is what I mean. This is how I understood Nalini when she said that your life will then fade like a dream, in that the mind part will fade away, but the consciousness will carry on. Now, I have that consciousness in me because that second bird is within me, right? And I'm saying that my thoughts, my brain, and everything is also that consciousness. So what will happen is that that veil will suddenly be lifted. The veil that's created by the mind will fall away, and the consciousness which is in me now as I'm talking and doing everything because it's controlling my body, my thoughts, my actions, and everything, right? Will suddenly come to the fore and all be suddenly crystal clear. So I feel that we will have that consciousness, but it's not in the form or in the way that we think, because we are living that human experience. And we quite often think our consciousness is our ego. It's the way we present ourselves to the world, the way we think, our ideas, our likes, dislikes, and everything that makes up us. And we think that's the end of it. That's what we present to the world. But there is behind all of that, working at exactly the same time, doing exactly the same things, that super consciousness, which will then emerge after death. That's the way I try and rationalize it. I hope it makes sense. I hope I expressed it clearly.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I wonder when that super consciousness emerges, mm, if it won't cease to care about figuring anything out and instead simply exist kind of immersed in gratitude for the experience that it's having.
Um, that's an interesting point. I can't see that it would give up on all of that and just merge into gratitude. I think I don't know how, you've raised an interesting point and you put me on the spot again. So I don't know whether you're right there or not. I think I see what you're saying. Perhaps if you elaborated on it more, give me time to think of a better response.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of looking for an answer, maybe again back to the simplicity. If the gratitude itself can be enough of an answer so that no other answer is important. The answer is so strong, it's so big that it it's everything.
Is it gratitude or is it love? I think I see
Hmm.
the importance of
Well,
gratitude. We have to,
yeah, but here's the thing too about words. It's like to remember, like these words are just a construction of mankind itself, like the language, right? Like the
yes,
word love is not love. The word gratitude is not gratitude. They're signposts pointing at something.
right.
So whatever that this thing is, probably this fusion of gratitude and love and peace and whatever other words you want to throw into it. Like
Right.
it's that the word is not that, but that this thing is so incredibly content, you know, just so content.
Yeah, that's probably a better word then, isn't it? Contentment rather than gratitude. Yeah, know that by which all else is known, I think, is the punchline on that one. You know, don't worry about knowing, experiencing anything. Once you know that one thing, all else doesn't matter. It's like everything else is just a ladder to get to the top of the mountain. When you're on the top of the mountain, you don't need the ladders anymore. You don't need the ropes or anything. You're there. So just cast them all away, and that way you can't climb down so easy.
Uh, yeah, I spent a lot of time with this woman. Her name was Kalyani Newman at the end of her life. She used to live here at the ashram.
Right.
And she, as often happens at the end of people's lives, they'll repeat stories over and over again.
Yeah.
And she would always repeat this. She said, I remember one night at satsang, someone asked Gurudev the question, so, Swamiji, what's the point of all this? I mean, what's the point of all of this? And she goes, yeah, he stopped for a second. He goes, to have fun, to have fun. And I love that answer because that's, I think, what we're talking about is like that place of just fun. Like what an answer to that
Yeah,
question.
fun, exactly. I mean, and you do everything to have that fun. You tailor everything in your life towards that end, and you dispense with the things that you will no longer need to have fun. I think, yeah, it's a good way of putting it. Contentment, fun, peace, joy. You know, yeah. At the end of the day, it is just that: peace and joy, love and light. Boom, fun.
Yeah. Yeah. But this movement always seems to happen, right? It's like the answer is found. There's no desire to seek for another answer, but just wait a little while.
Yeah, you think you got the answer, but life will tell you differently if you just wait.
Yeah.
I know, I get that. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
The movement, I think, is such an important thing to understand in order to achieve maybe what we're talking about is to have an understanding that, yeah, that's why I kind of question the whole idea of becoming enlightened,
Hmm.
actually, because it doesn't seem in alignment with nature, or at least I would define it differently. That if one is enlightened, it's still moving. There's still movement. It's not stagnant because nothing in nature is stagnant. How could it be stagnant?
No, you can't. Everything's constantly changing. That was my contention about time. Time is just a label we put on change because things change all the time, sometimes imperceptibly, so that's very slow, and sometimes very rapidly. And because of our uh, we're, we're so caught up in the concept of time, we've created a whole vocabulary behind it, to describe it even, and it is, at the end of the day, it's just change. And whatever we do, right, that change will continue. It'll always change. We're changing every day, in fact. We're casting off brain cells, we're casting off skin cells. You're not the same guy that I would talk to yesterday. I would have talked to you yesterday, and likewise, because your hair would have changed, you might have lost some facial cells off your face, your brain, all this sort of stuff. You lose so many brain cells in that. And we're constantly changing physically. You know, I'm not. I think Gurudev said it. You started life as a baby, and then a toddler, then a small boy, then a teenager, and then you grow up to be a man, then an old man, and so on, right? But each of those stages, you have a completely different body, so you are completely different. In fact, you have a completely different mind as well, if you think about it, as you learn and as you grow and as you develop. And so we're not the same people we were when we were young. And that's what struck me about the question you asked me not long ago, is what would I say to my, what was it, 8-year-old self?
Yeah.
I'd be really curious it'd be amazing actually to meet my 8-year-old self. I'd probably be shocked, to say, why was I really like that? So what would you say to, my only answer to you was not to worry, everything will be all right, because I've grown up and everything's all right. But yeah, sorry, I've gone off on a tangent there. We're talking about change and so on, but yeah, carry on.
Yeah. It, it, it seems that actually every moment is an opportunity to start again, from a neutral place, right? Like if we're meditating, if we practice coming to that neutral place, then we see the possibility of that. And it can actually be somewhat overwhelming, I find. Like the immensity of that. There's all these moments within a day, and every single moment is an opportunity to start again. It doesn't have to be, but that's interesting. Like that's there's such a power in that, in like
Yeah,
letting go
very.
of the past, like
Yeah,
in a practice in it. It's just like letting go of the past of all this stuff that I've developed and I've experienced over the years, and I get to start from now
yeah.
again and again and again.
That's. I think you develop that as you become more aware through your practices. That and the more you contemplate that, I think the less daunting it becomes. Um, I mean, it's a fact that how you react in this moment will determine what will happen in the next. And if you're aware of that, then sometimes your reaction might be anger, or it might be something negative. But if you're instantly aware of that, oh, how I react now is going to change the future. Um, you can actually stop it, and then you can change it for something positive, and that will have a more positive outcome. But people just don't. They just ride along, they flow along, and they don't stop to think that they just react to things, and then they don't necessarily think of the consequences of the reactions. And I think that's the good thing about having a spiritual practice, is that you become more aware of everything that you do in a day and how that can impact the next hour, the next 2 hours, or it can be the next person that you come across. If your mood's a bad one, should you actually go out and see people? Because you're going to have a negative effect on them. Is it probably then better to say, okay, I'm in a really bad mood today, I'm just going to lock myself in the room until I get over it? And that way you save a lot of people from your negativity. It's just being aware of that. And I think the more you get into this spiritual practice, the more that comes. And I find it not so daunting. I find it that there's an opportunity, and it's up to me to take that opportunity. And I tend to analyze rather than just say, okay, I'm going to do it without thinking. I'd rather sit down and analyze the situation and say, what do I need to do now then to take advantage of that opportunity? What do I need to change? And then the realization comes, oh, there's a hell of a lot you've got to change, to really get to where you want to be. And then you say, okay, how am I going to do it? And then the stress will come if you think, oh, I've got to do all of this stuff. And you think you've got to do it in one go, or instantly, to get the result that you want. But if you plan it out and you just say, okay, today I'm just going to do this little part of it. If I succeed, great. If I don't, well, I've still got another opportunity to have another go at it. And then you just pace yourself over it and don't expect instant results. And a lot of people, unfortunately, do. They just want to see things happen so quickly. And I'm not just talking about on the spiritual path. I'm talking about other things in life as well. And I think we just have to learn to accept that the opportunities are there, to contemplate what the opportunities actually mean, rather than just, in other words, to set a target, to set a new target, whatever it happens to be, but always make it realistic. Never to overload yourself and say, oh my God, I've got to be like this in a week's time. I'll never do it. And therefore you never get off the ground. You see what I'm saying? Maybe I'm not expressing it well, but that's I think the key to it is not to find it daunting, but to actually think, oh great, it's an opportunity.
Yeah,
Let's work on it. Right.
Totally. I think that's good. That's playful. That's fun. That okay,
That
like
makes it
it's
fun.
like it's like problem solving
Yes,
something. Here's
exactly.
a situation, and I can use my mind to try to find a solution that feels right to me.
But also,
However, yeah,
if you can't, just know someone or somewhere that you can go to help you get, what it is you want. I think that's also realizing your own abilities, you know.
and also to have patience and wait.
Yes.
That if I can be patient and wait, okay, there's a good chance that the answer will come, but maybe just not in this moment right now.
It may not be the one you're looking for either.
That too.
That's the fun part.
But I also think it's important to keep in mind the limitation of the mind, right? It's not just all the mind figuring out what to do next. It's the mind is one system that's working together with a larger system
Correct.
to to decide. Uh, and that's very important, right? Because so many like right action, right,
Yeah.
is often well beyond the mind. There to me is a kind of like letting go to myself, which includes my mind, in order to continue on.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think we are limited, and sometimes people think that they're not, and then they can tie themselves in knots. And I think, yeah, we are severely limited. There's so much that we will never understand. For example, the nature of reality. What is real? We'll never understand it, because all our perception of reality is fed through our five senses. And those five senses can be so easily fooled. So then what is real? It's like, who are we really? We think that we are, I'm Les Roberts, but if I tomorrow had a stroke, heaven forbid, but if I had one tomorrow, my character will completely change. and it might even, change beyond recognition. So who am I? And you just have to keep those thoughts in mind and say, I am limited, and I am limited in so many ways, and accept that limitation and take
Mm.
advantage of whatever it is that you have. If you have a mind that's analytical, use it. If you don't use it, you'll lose it, and try and make sense of it. It's a long road, I think, to getting to simplicity. You have to go through so much complication
Yeah.
to get to simplicity, right? And everybody does it. And I just realized one day, I said, what on earth am I struggling to understand? Let's just keep it so simple. And then I
Mm.
can be comfortable. Then I can be peaceful with it. Then I can be happy and content. And as soon as somebody comes along and says, oh, but, and I think this, blah, 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 you think, oh, no, sorry, go away, go away. I've got my simple system, and I want to keep it that way. I'm
Yeah.
prepared to listen to other people's views. Don't get me wrong. I'm not arrogant like that. I am prepared to listen to other people's views. But if they try to convince me of something else, then maybe they'll spark off something that will make me contemplate and my next meditation and try and get to the bottom of what they were saying and the point they're trying to make. But I won't let it deviate from, the simplistic way I want to look at things. It might enhance it. It might not. It might be totally contradictory to what I believe. And that's so I won't dismiss it out of hand. I just say, okay, right, okay, you've got a point there. Let me sit on it for a while. Let me contemplate it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I just say, okay, fine. Well, I went down that road, turned around, came back, and back where I started. Simple, nice, happy.
Right. I think it's like back to those two different parts of ourselves, right? It's like
Mm.
you're talking about, I think the the part that is totally satisfied, right, and is not seeking, and then the other part is the seeker that is
Yes.
trying to figure everything out, right?
Yeah.
And there's this movement between the the satisfied guy and the seeker.
Yeah, exactly. But then eventually, I think you come to the point where you say, okay, give in. I'm satisfied now. I don't need to seek anymore.
Yeah.
I won't close my ears to things, but yeah, and don't pussyfoot. That's why I think it's very healthy and liberating if you have a sincere respect for other people's beliefs, especially all the mainstream religions. You may not agree with them, but you understand that people are happy there. They've created good lives for themselves there. It's for them. Done. Okay, perfect. It's not for me. I can't put up with 1,000 rules and regulations. Give me the 10 commandments. That's enough. Where did they come up with all these rules and regulations? um, so anyway, I won't criticize religions, but I will accept that they are not for me.
Hmm. Well, Les, I really enjoyed this conversation, as I always enjoy speaking with you. Thanks for being you. Thanks for being both a true seeker and a true satisfied person. I get that sense, and yeah, I'm glad our paths have met each other. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I echo that. Yeah, I think this is wonderful work you're doing, and keep going, my friend. Keep going. And I hope I made sense and didn't offend anyone and confuse anyone.
All good. That's for them, even their confusion. Yeah, let it be for them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed, Avi. It's been a wonderful experience again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this content and think others might as well, please feel free to share and subscribe.